Move.
Get the fuck out of here.
Resist.
You cannot come in here.
Resist.
We don't care. We don't know where it is. Get out. That's not your job. You don't know that. Get out.
It's hard running a Somali daycare in Minnesota. You're supposed to be teaching toddlers their ABCs, but instead you're teaching the state how to approve invoices. Your classroom has 4 kids, but the paperwork says 47. All of them apparently enrolled full-time. All of them apparently eating 3 hot meals a day. You're making so much bread off this operation that you can low-canoeingly buy a Bugatti. But right as you're at the dealership, a YouTuber walks in asking where all the kids are at. Your first instinct is to say they're on an excursion to Somalia. But there is no excursion. There's only you. $1 million of misallocated state funds and a pending Bugatti purchase.
You know, I have to say, the fact that national politicians and mainstream media are getting this upset at a YouTuber is utterly hilarious, but also pretty telling at the same time, because just a couple of days ago, we did react to the Nick Shirley video where he is going around Minnesota to the Somali-ran businesses that are widely being accused of committing fraud, but according to the Democrats is not real, and doing something very simple, right? Asking for the service they claim to provide. Hey, if it's a daycare center for children, can I sign my child up for daycare? If it's a healthcare company, can I sign up for health insurance? And virtually every single time, he's getting the same exact response. They refuse to even open the door. A lot of times they barely seem to speak any English. At the daycare centers, there never seems to be any kids around. And of course, the logical conclusion of that is what? As we've already seen in multiple different federal indictments, this whole widespread fraud and money laundering thing where they're stealing taxpayer dollars from the state of Minnesota and ultimately the people of this country is going a lot deeper than perhaps the Democrats would like to claim. But of course, now that the video has gotten hundreds of millions of views and is arguably the biggest news story in America, today I do want to show you some of the reactions we are getting from mainstream liberal figures. Of course, we have Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and other Democrats accusing this YouTuber of now being a white supremacist because, yes, how dare he, in a supposedly integrated country, go to a minority neighborhood and just try to simulate living life, right? Hey, can I sign up for your business at the business you're claiming to provide? And of course, if you look at the situation that was very obvious and accuse them of money laundering, you must just be a racist. But of course, that is the reaction we always hear when liberals know they're losing on the substance of the issue. Yeah, it's almost like the fraud is actually real, and there's not much of a response to that besides saying, oh, it's white supremacy, or, oh, you know, other people who are not Somali commit crimes as well. Yes, we never said that, but we never said that, you know, it wasn't happening. But do you understand how per capita works, Tim Walz? We'll react to this. But I also do want to show you how the mainstream media and the quote-unquote real journalists are trying to respond. Because first of all, we have their supposed fact checks trying to debunk this story that don't actually fact check anything. They just further verify the point that the right-wingers here are trying to make. We've even seen some people who even work in the media, right, insinuating that Nick Shirley and others who are doing this type of stuff should be shot. No, I'm not making that up. Of course, random people chasing him around in the streets, threatening him. But I'm sure there's absolutely nothing to hide here. This is definitely not guilty behavior. But let's talk about it, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. We greatly appreciate it. And let me just say, what always happens when a Democrat or even like a liberal voter, if you know what I mean, like you ever see those types of videos at the traffic stops, immediately when they're in trouble, what do they always resort to? Calling you a racist. Take a listen to Tim Walz's response to what we've recently learned a lot about.
This is what happens when they target communities for their own benefit. This is what happens when they scapegoat. And this is what happens when they no longer hide the idea of white supremacy.
Well, of course, right? That is just the response. Oh, they're targeting the Somalis. That must mean they're racist. Okay, let's explain a couple of things. First of all, it is not wrong to target a certain area or neighborhood or group of people if you know that the majority of the problems disproportionately are going from that group of people. I know Democrats believe the opposite, right? But it is, after all, common sense. Hey, if there's a lot of crime in a neighborhood, yes, you should have a greater police presence in that neighborhood. Does that mean, in a sense, I guess you're targeting that neighborhood? Maybe, sure, but it's for legitimate reasons, which brings me to my second point. They're scapegoating the Somalis, he says. Let's go directly to the English dictionary and please read the definition of a scapegoat. That is a person who is blamed for wrongdoings, mistakes, or faults of others, right? Which means, after all, it's not scapegoating if the problem is real or they actually did it, which of course, last of all, means that doesn't make you a white supremacist in any way. Apparently, again, this is their argument, right? If you're concerned about money laundering, if you don't want people to be committing crimes, then that must make you a white supremacist. I mean, I don't know. That's probably not the first time we've heard that from leftist figures, but this is all to say, right? It's just a completely lazy excuse coming from someone who we've well established in many different videos by now, absolutely, at least his state government, and very likely him, let's be honest. I mean, that has to be proved, but we can connect the dots, right? Was in on exactly what was happening. He was well aware of this problem, and he just wants to make excuses. Ironically, he's actually the one scapegoating here, right? But that said, okay, that's kind of deflection number one. Let's just call people racist. Deflection number two is his argument here that, well, the majority of crime is committed by white men, because apparently, I don't know how per capita works. And by the way, I'm pretty sure that's still not even true. But nonetheless, okay, reason number two why it's racist to talk about a very disproportionate rate of fraud happening in the Somali community.
Look, it's not law-abiding citizens. If that were the case, there's a lot of white men should be holding a lot of white men accountable for the crimes that they have committed. I think for the community to maybe educate their population, because I think what you're seeing here is there's secondary victims in this, that there's providers inside the community that are then victimizing the community themselves by signing them up, because when we're going to some of these people, they're like, I had no idea I was in this program. So
okay, wait, first of all, this is actually a point I've made about it, which is, okay, shouldn't the Somalis, first of all, be happy that we're cracking down on fraud? Because, yeah, when there's crime happening, that impacts other people who are just trying to live their lives. But of course, that's not really the reaction we've widely seen. I mean, I'm sure there's some Somali people who are like, yes, nail that guy, he's been cheating. But if it's the opposite, then very likely it's because there's this widespread mindset and mentality amongst each other. Yes, this is kind of the point, right? We're trying to defraud the United States, et cetera, et cetera. But okay, that said, Tim Walz, if that's the case, then why are you mad at what we're doing? Why are you calling it white supremacist? Because you're admitting the same thing that we've been trying to make the point here, right? When you crack down on crime, let's say in a black neighborhood, in theory at least, that should be helping the black residents who want to live in a safe community. The same is true with, Somali people who are allegedly, apparently, this is what Democrats claim. Oh, 99% of them are trying to run a legitimate business, and this is just the 1%. Okay, so shouldn't we crack down on the 1% logically to make it better for the 99%? Why are you so defensive? Why are you so hostile? There's only one reason for that. First of all, we've widely established, right? The state government knows they're giving out a bunch of fraudulent money. That's kind of the point. It's a political machine for votes and likely kickbacks. And of course, secondly, it seems to me, right, internally within the community, maybe the attitudes here are not exactly as you're describing that, oh, everyone wants these fraudsters to be cracked down on, which suggests that what? A lot of people are also in on the fraud, and it's not a small problem. But anyways, okay, let's hear this theory about how actually the fraud rate among the Somali community, which is factually very disproportionate, is not actually disproportionate. Okay.
I think it's asking us then, for every crime, which of course the majority being committed by white men, asking us to do more about that. I think it's crime in general. And I think the biggest thing on this is just making sure that we're educating the population. And again, this is 80 people or so that have been convicted in this, maybe some more in that, out of a broader ring. Medicaid fraud will stretch across all racial demographics, all ethnic groups. So I think it's really important for us to note each community's got this in their own midst, but to blame them and say that they should have been responsible for stopping it, I think that's a pretty hard reach. I think we continue to educate folks about why they shouldn't commit crimes. You would hope that it's being taught both at.
No, okay, first of all, Tim Walz, we're not just blaming them, we're also blaming you. You understand that? Okay, because sure, you could attack the fraudsters, but at the end of the day, it is also the responsibility of the state government to make sure they're not sending out fraudulent money. Yeah, you should make sure the Feeding Children nonprofit is actually a real nonprofit. You should make sure the daycare that you're giving millions of dollars to actually has children inside. Oh, wait a minute. Who's in charge of the state government? You are, dude, right? So, yeah, don't get me wrong. First of all, when you say the majority of crime is being committed by white men, I mean, I guess that's true if we're talking about the white man known as you, okay? But it's not just about us targeting the Somalis. We're also targeting the people who enable the fraud, aka you. That's first of all. Secondly, of course, like most leftists, he just does not understand how per capita works or what those words mean. But after all, that's kind of the basis of the entire left-wing political ideology, if we want to call it that. It's just one long thing, one long book people would read if they don't actually understand how per capita statistics works. But still, I'm going to venture to guess that's not even true, even in raw numbers. But even that said, okay, so, you basically get the point. We are getting this desperate reaction from even Democrat politicians from a freaking YouTuber. I do now want to show you how liberal media is trying to fact check this because it's utterly hilarious. Here's from CBS News. We'll just kind of read for you what they said, right? A recent video by conservative YouTuber Nick Shirley alleged nearly a dozen daycare centers in Minnesota that are receiving public funds are not actually providing any service. After that video went viral, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem announced a massive investigation on childcare and other rampant fraud in the state. Okay, so here's the fact check. CBS conducted its own analysis of nearly a dozen daycare centers mentioned by Shirley. All but 2 have active licenses, according to the state records, and all active locations were being visited by state regulators within the last 6 months. CBS News Review also found that dozens of citations were there related to safety, cleanliness, equipment, and staff training, among other violations, but there was no recorded evidence of fraud. Really? That's your fact check? Everyone give a round of applause. Okay, look at this dork. I mean, he really thought he did journalism with that. Okay. So instead of actually going into the daycare or looking at what we were claiming, right? There's no kids in the center. Nope. Instead, they went to the state government, aka Tim Walz, and said, oh, but they have active licenses, all but 2. So you mean 2 of them didn't have active licenses? But okay. Most of them have active licenses. And yeah, they were being visited by the state bureaucrats who work for Tim Walz. See, guys, there's no fraud going on because there's not been any recorded evidence, aka indictments or criminal complaints about the fraud. Are you brain dead or something? Okay, I don't think he is. I think obviously he's just assuming that, the liberal viewers or whatever will be too stupid to figure this out. Our entire accusation, at least mine, or I think honestly the whole right wings, it's never been that the fraud is just flying under the radar or something in terms of whatever, right? No, it's always been that the state government is in on it. Okay, and obviously that has to be true if it's this widespread. So yes, CBS, you not even investigating the daycares themselves and just saying, hey, well, Tim Walz said that it's an active daycare center and we sent state bureaucrats to check it and it's fine. Yeah, our whole point is that Tim Walz is in on it, you doofus, okay? Like, what are you even talking about? And by the way, on this front, I would just like to point out to all of these, mainstream media idiots who are like, oh, well, no documented evidence of fraud, that even some of their local broadcasters have been documenting this very money laundering, fake business trend operating in the Somali community for years. This is not some new thing that was invented in 2025 or that Nick Shirley, the YouTuber himself, came up with. I mean, here's, for instance, surveillance video from 2018 showing that for a very long time, people kind of knew about this. And by the way, we're also complaining.
In order for the scheme to work, the daycare centers need to sign up low-income families that qualify for child care assistance funding. These surveillance videos are from a case prosecuted by Hennepin County. They show parents checking their kids into a center only to leave with them a few minutes later. Sometimes no children would show up. But either way, the center would bill the state for a full day of child care. This video from that same case shows a man handing out envelopes of what are believed to be kickback payments to parents who are in on the fraud.
Where was the money going? I don't know exactly where.
Yeah, so it's not exactly like this is a new issue. This is not something that Nick Shirley magically invented. It's been a national news story for several months, but frankly, a local news story for several years. It's kind of hard for national media outlets to write this off as propaganda when they're local stations, right? Local ABC, Fox, CBS were all covering this stuff. I mean, that's a little bit awkward when your own network is in a way contradicting yourself. And of course, the outrage from a quote unquote journalist over another journalist going on the ground and actually seeing a situation for himself, right? Not running literal state propaganda and saying, well, the government said it's fine, so therefore it's fine, is ridiculous, okay? You know, I really asked to this guy right here, the CBS guy, I mean, did you even bother to show up to one single daycare center? I don't think he did. I think he just called Tim Walz, and Tim Walz said, oh, everything's fine. And so therefore, I mean, everything clearly is fine. Because if you simply even just showed up, perhaps you would notice a trend that Nick Shirley has further exposed a lot, which is the fact that as it pertains to even the phone numbers outside of like these signs that, you know, on the daycare centers, right, call this number, many of them are not even active. Some of them even route to Tim Walz's office directly, right? So basically they're putting fake advertising, fake phone numbers, which clearly to me suggests what? A fake business. But as you can see right here.
Now listen to where this phone number goes to when you call this childcare center. Just wait for it.
Thank you for contacting the office of Governor Tim Walz and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. Our office is located at 130 State Capitol at 75.
Yeah, well, you don't say. That might also be a pretty glaring red flag that CBS News might have noticed if they even bothered to check or verify or do actual journalism. But again, let's just choose to run state propaganda instead. And to all the liberals who I've seen responding by mocking the whole internet sleuth thing, right? Saying, how could some YouTuber uncover $100 million worth of fraud or whatever? I mean, that's a joke. What does he think he's doing? No, it's actually very simple. You know why it was that easy to expose? Because it's that obvious, happening in broad daylight. The point I've made over and over about this Somali fraud stuff is every single case we've seen, it's not an elaborate plot. It's not something where it's like, I can't believe we managed to catch that. No, every single time, stats don't even match what they're telling the government. Government just sends it out anyway. I mean, you have these daycare centers, like there's not even any kids inside. The phone numbers out front are either fake or just routing back directly to the state government. Yeah, it's that lazy, which of course proves to us again the point we've been trying to make, and I don't know why liberals continue to miss this. No, it's not just that the Somalis were defrauding people. It's also a story of political corruption because there's no way the state government was totally oblivious to what is going on here, okay? You know, maybe it's not much of a coincidence or it's a funny little metaphor for why in their total laziness, they route the number for Tim Walz and the Minnesota governor's office to that very building. But, you know, it doesn't stop there from the media. We have this Politico reporter by the name of Josh Gerstein, who essentially insinuates here that citizen journalists like Nick Shirley should be shot. Let's read that for you. At some point, the amateur effort to knock on doors of home daycares intersects with robust stand your ground laws, right? Referring to their kind of the idea of, hey, you know, if someone's messing with you, stand your ground says you essentially have the right to self-defense. And so what he's trying to insinuate here, right, is that, hey, if you knock on the door of a home daycare, the Somali owner should have the right to shoot you. And obviously, in a kind of stochastic terroristic way, that is an insinuation, right? He knows, let's be clear, right, what kind of message will be sent about this is kind of, sort of like, hey, you know, violence, right? We know. You know, he's probably going to play it off and say, well, legally speaking, that's not a threat. But yeah, he knows exactly what he's doing with this, okay? And let me first of all point out that that's just simply not true, okay? You know, stand your ground law says you have the right to defend yourself. Yes, if your life is threatened, you know, Castle Doctrine says if someone tries to break into your house, hop into your, you know, backyard, break through the door or something, absolutely, you have the right to self-defense in that case. But knocking on the door of a business is a completely legal activity. You're out in public, okay? You're not threatening anyone's life, so he's just wrong about that. But yeah, that's essentially where we're at with this. We have the quote-unquote real journalists, by their own account, insinuating that independent journalists should be shot for doing actual journalism, right? Something that these mainstream reporters won't do. Hey, you know, again, I say, if we're lying so much, then why don't you do the same thing that Nick Shirley did? You know, why don't you go to those businesses for yourself and be like, hey, you know, let's see what's going on. Let's verify whether it's true. Oh, no, you're sitting at home. You're just asking the governor's office very lazily, right, to see, oh, is it true? Oh, you said it's not true. Okay, yeah, it's almost like You don't want to go on the ground. You don't want to do the actual journalism. Could it perhaps be because you're scared of what you might find? You're a little bit worried that perhaps you would realize, oh, Nick Shirley is sort of telling the truth here. I have no idea. But that said, it should not be a surprise to anyone that the type of rhetoric coming from both the media and politicians has had a very real effect on the ground. Of course, we now have random either Somali residents or just general liberal psychos in general who have been going around harassing and threatening Nick Shirley. All just for asking, trying to look into a business, looking to see if a business is legitimate. Take a look for yourself.
This fraud is here at this daycare.
Don't open up!
So this is Quality Learning Center. I meant to say Quality Learning Center.
Don't open
They
up!
said they spelt learning wrong.
Don't open up!
How do you have ice here, ma'am? I'm literally a YouTuber.
Don't open up!
Ma'am, what do you think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
Don't open up! We have ice!
And what do you think about this place being licensed for 99 children?
Don't open up!
And getting $4 million over the
Open up! It's ice!
$4 million in the last 2 years?
Go away!
What do you think about that? Are you in favor?
Away!
Are you in favor of that?
Go away!
You know
You're not welcome here. Shame on you!
Are you in favor of $1.9 million going illegally, fraudulently to this business that has Quality Learning Center but can't even spell learning right on the door?
Don't open up!
My favorite part of that video is how she can't actually answer any of the questions, right? Very typical liberal response on all of this. Hey, oh, they're ICE, they're racist, don't open up, shame on you. Okay, but what do you actually think this business is legitimate? Hey, here are the receipts, here are the documents. What do you think about that? No answer. Same as Tim Walz, which is ironic because she kind of looks like Tim Walz, but, very telling. But of course, it doesn't just stop at some, random No Kings protester just screaming like an idiot. Of course, it gets a little more rowdy than that, as you could expect.
Now we're being followed by the Somalis. This is another daycare center, absolutely no signage, and there's no footprints in the snow of children playing outside. $5 million within the past
5.9 million in 2 years. 5.9 million they received in 2 years. That facility right there.
And now we have a group of Somalis telling us in our vehicle right now.
Get the fuck out of here.
Get out of here, man.
Get the fuck out of here. Move. Get the fuck out of here.
You cannot come in here. We don't care. We don't know where it is. Get out. That's not your job. You don't know that. Get out.
He's recording.
Get out of here. Fucking idiot. Hey, still recording.
They're recording.
Get out of here, man. Move.
I didn't give you permission to record me.
What kind of no? Why you come here? Why you have permission? No, get out of here. Get out of here. Oh,
They're so mad. The Somalians are so mad because can you imagine? For years you're at the dinner table talking with your family about how everything's good. Oh, we don't need to worry because the government and whatnot. I mean, 81% of these people are on welfare, but on top of that, they're collecting millions of dollars for these companies. Tax exempt, by the way, especially the daycares. So can you imagine how mad they are now? Like, that's why they're right now, there's, people are so upset. Like, there's, bounties on me here in Minnesota because people are so upset as far as the fraud that's being exposed because they know their time's up and they know everyone's just sick and tired of this happening inside their own state and across America.
What have some of those threats been?
Yeah, there was apparently a bolo that they used. That's the word that some people told me was on me, and I can't reveal too much just because I don't want to reveal. But lots of messages, death threats, obviously on social media, and then it's just not the most safe thing for me to be moving around freely right now.
Yeah, well, certainly we're all praying for Nick Shirley's safety, and I definitely hope he has some pretty robust private security and self-defense measures because, obviously we already know the left is inherently violent, and we've seen what they do on that front. But I would argue, in this case, it's a little deeper than that. he's also further stepping on some pretty delicate eggshells as it pertains to, first of all, exposing an organized crime network, right? Basically a mafia. And as you know, how does the mafia often respond? Well, they're going to claim it doesn't exist, but, you know, keep your eyes on that, right? How does the mafia often respond when you piss them off? Okay? You know, imagine pissing off the Italian mafia in the 1920s. Well, in this case, right, that's something to definitely keep an eye on, especially coming from a country with so much organized crime, violence, terrorism, piracy, you name it. Again, praying for his safety. But I would even lastly here say, right, well, I don't know if I want to say too much because obviously, but let me just say this right now, okay? Ever since we've been covering this story for the past month or so, many Minnesotans have tried to reach out to me, and let me just say I've heard stories, right? I've heard rumors from the grapevine in terms of kind of what happens when you try to expose this kind of fraud. Now, that said, I will be clear, right? This is just anecdotal stories I'm hearing from people. I'm not saying whether they're true or not. I haven't pushed them on the channel for a reason, but it seems to me a lot of people do have similar accounts on that, right? You know? There's even been a lot, even in our own comment section, a lot of people are now asking questions about, hey, you know, maybe some of the past political violence we've seen in Minnesota, is there a kind of suspicious connection there? I don't know, right? I don't know. I'm not pushing that for sure. I'm just saying on many different fronts, this is a guy, I hope stays safe. He's doing a patriotic thing. And certainly the defensive reactions just tell you everything you need to know. You know, all he did was go knock on the doors of a couple businesses and film it for a YouTube video. And immediately you have prominent people saying he's a white supremacist, threatening violence, chasing him around, all this stuff. I mean, yeah, tells you a lot, doesn't it? But that said, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. And until next time, God bless and peace.